District 23. And she is one of the must-watch races because she is running against Debbie Wasserman Schill, who we need out. As Berners, we all know that she is practically enemy number one. So please welcome Jen. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you so much for having me on. I always love being able to go back with people that I was on with earlier and note any sort of new changes in progress that we're making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I had you when you were first kind of starting, and your campaign has really blown up, and it's amazing to see. What has surprised you as far as that goes? Or is it kind of taken off more than you expected?
I think that, there's so many things happening simultaneously, so it's hard to say, because on the one hand, we had really just started getting our ground game and our canvassing operations really moving along when we were hit with the pandemic and having to shut down all of our, door to door and our personal meetings. And so when that happened is also sort of around the same time where Bernie suspended his campaign, at which point we also obtained a lot of additional volunteers that were coming off of that campaign. So many things were happening simultaneously. It's hard to say what is what, and also just that we're getting closer and we're officially in primary season. Ours is not until August 18th, but I think just the daily grind is at a point now where people are just realizing what a mess we're in.
Absolutely. Now, I take it you guys have mail-in voting earlier than 8/18?
Yes, we have mail-in voting here. We've had it for a long time here where we can just request to get mail-in ballots. I would like to see it just automatically now everybody be getting mail-in ballots, at least for this election cycle. But yeah, it's an option. And we are certainly encouraging people to request vote by mail. And when we call and phone bank, it's one of the things that we offer to link people to is the link to vote by mail and have them set up to do it. It's really easy to do, but we're definitely proponents of vote by mail.
Absolutely. I'm in Pennsylvania. They said they were sending me mine over a month ago. I'm like,
when's your primary?
June 2nd. So they need to get on this shit because
now, yeah,
I worked my ass off for Bernie and I deserve to check that damn box. So they need to hurry up.
Can you imagine the people in New York that busted their butt for Bernie? And it's just so interesting. And I thought about it the other day as a candidate. I sort of had this epiphany because when people were saying, well, he suspended his campaign. So, he said he wasn't running. And so we should do. And I really thought about it. And there is a very big difference between your campaign and being on the ballot. If you qualify to be on a ballot, let's say that I qualify to be on my ballot, but I choose to not campaign. I choose to just sit at home and do absolutely nothing to promote myself and sell myself or whatever. But I qualified to be on that ballot. I need to be on that ballot. My campaign is a separate entity from my qualification to be on the ballot. And I want people to understand that. So with Bernie, the fact that he suspended his campaign is irrelevant to them taking him off the ballot. That's my not legal opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to convention. I already have my place booked. If it's still there, I'm going to be there. And we need at least 25% of the delegates to have a voice on that floor. We just won 10 more delegates today from Kansas.
What scares me is them stifling and then pulling some sort of virtual convention and doing all the things that you could possibly do to stifle the resistance even more. So they are going to take such advantage of the pandemic. I mean, I'm not a tinfoil hat wearer where I think that it's, being forced on us by, people from outer space or anything, but they are definitely going to capitalize on it and take advantage of it to suppress the vote as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I have a backup plan if the in-person convention is canceled, which Tom Perez, not that you trust him, but 5 days ago he set out and said it wasn't. I have a backup plan. We're organizing at the DNC headquarters in DC. They're going to hear from us either way.
Good.
So it's, it's going down regardless. This is our, like, we protested in 16. This is our last listen to us or bye forever. Now you, Broward County, there is no more screwed up place than Broward. Now, I mean, it's just historical. I've had Tim Canova on like 4 or 5 times throughout, his 2 runs. I know I'm personally apprehensive for you.
I'm
Like,
personally apprehensive for me.
yeah, like what can you do? Are you setting anything in place that can hopefully, I don't know, deter some things? Well, Brenda's out of office now, right?
There's that. I mean, there's a few different variables at play. So the first thing is that, yes, Debbie's friend is no longer the supervisor of elections of Broward. So obviously that in and of itself is not the be all end all, but it's definitely better than having a very biased person in the SOE. So now who we have is a man named Pete Antonacci, and he's a nice guy. He was appointed by Rick Scott, a Republican governor. And Pete is extremely competent, and I have no reason to think that he has any agenda. And just based on where he stands in relation to Debbie, he has no horse in this race. So I feel good about that. The other thing that we have that's been in place here is our Progressive Caucus has been spearheading something called the Citizens Election Audit through a national, I don't know what the name of the company is that does this app, but it's very similar to what Bernie was using on the ground during the caucuses and the primaries. So where we're going to be able to keep track at our own ballots. I think our presidential primary, they had more than 3/4 of our polling places covered by volunteers out, taking polls and putting it. There's an app that they're using. So I like that. I like that we're going to have a very strong vote by mail campaign. And yeah, there's, I have a certain concern with that too. Like, how do I know that those ballots don't just end up in the trunk of someone's car and never turned in? And, I don't. And I wish I could say I was totally confident, but I'm not. So we just got to do this and be loud enough and strong enough that all the little finagling and the little things here and there aren't going to be enough to suppress the change.
So is it just, as far as on the Dem side, is it just you and DWS at this point?
Correct. That's it. It's just her and I. And then I want to say there's 3 or 4 Republicans that qualified, but it's really irrelevant. We're so gerrymandered.
Oh, right. Wow. I think, I can't stand identity politics, but I feel like a lot of people voted for her last time because she's a woman. And I think that, that was one of the downfalls of inadvertently of Tim's campaign. Not that he can help being a man, but I think sometimes, whether you're progressive or not, if, people want a woman. So I think that's something that will help you get votes. I mean, people love identity politics.
And unfortunately down here, it's even one step more, because people very much appreciate that I'm a Jewish woman. Oh. And that I'm a Jewish woman from here. And it is one of those things that is a comfort level, and it matters to people. And it's not any different than if you were in Miami-Dade County, how there's definitely a record of Latino surnames doing exceptionally well in elections. There is a comfort level for people. So I do think it's an advantage. I don't personally vote that way, but I do know that it's comfortable for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so as far as your platform, it's, kind of what I call a Bernie candidate platform. Yeah. Now, as far as the Green New Deal, environmentally, when I interview people in Florida, they're always very passionate about things to do with the water, because you guys are right there. Yeah. What are some of the things going on that you fear environmentally?
There's a few things, and we have to make a distinction in Florida, because we have basically 2 types of water ecosystems. So we have our inland waters, which is where we essentially get our drinking water, and that comes down from the Lake Okeechobee in the middle of the state, and it is supposed to get rinsed through the Everglades. The Everglades is supposed to be our natural filtration system, which one of the many problems with that is companies that are like Big Sugar and industrial agriculture have blockaded what would be the access to the natural filtration by either dredging it or using the property. So it's essentially our water, instead of filtering through the Everglades, gets put into these man-made canals. It's a whole different process. So we have our inland waters, and they suffer from certain types of pollution. And then we have our coastal waters, which is we have the receding shorelines, and we have, instead of people taking that seriously, we seem to have nonstop, constant dredging and development. So right now, currently, there is a 100-yacht marina that is being put in Fort Lauderdale, which is not specifically in my district, but they're dredging out all the mangroves and all the sea grapes, which is the plant life that holds the soil together and keeps it from eroding and provides shelter and protection for all the estuary critters. So all the little mini fish and mini turtles and mini, estuaries are where all these sea creatures do their breeding. And so when you rip out all of the natural stuff that retains the soil, it's basically like underwater deforestation. That's essentially what it's like, is underwater deforestation. So we have that. And then in the inland waters, like I said, we have industrial agriculture. And then there's always the threat of drilling in the Everglades. Recently, we had a good success with that. So we were able to ward off the most recent attempt for a company to drill for oil in the Everglades, but that's always lurking.
Wow, that is heartbreaking. What other things from the Green New Deal environmentally are you passionate about?
The whole concept, honestly, of putting people to work, rebuilding our entire infrastructure that needs to be completely revamped to be a green infrastructure. That is the thing that excites me the most, quite honestly, about the Green New Deal, is the leveling out of the income inequality by things like a jobs guarantee and a living wage, and the things that will make everybody in a more thriving manner, and also be contributing to revamping our infrastructure so that it's green. We need light rail. We need a solar infrastructure down here. We don't even have a solar initiative in South Florida, in any of Florida. We're the Sunshine State, and yet we don't build our public buildings with solar panels on them. So there's just so many things. We're still rewarding and incentivizing bad behavior from corporations and commercial polluters, and we're still not incentivizing the behavior we want people to take. So it comes down to getting the money out and getting the priorities straight. If we encourage green building and we discourage polluting, that's how it works. I try to explain it. It's like having kids. You encourage good behavior, you punish bad behavior. And we know why we're not.
Absolutely. You do support the federal job guarantee, which I agree is the most important. That 10 years? Are you kidding me? How are we going to do it without that? Now, you have also been promoting UBI, and studies show that if they don't go together, it's not going to work. So as far as UBI without jobs guarantee is just, it's not going to work.
That's like UBI without single payer healthcare. I've said the same, right? So I always just clarify, like, UBI is fine, but it's not a fix all. It doesn't solve the problem. Like, I think that some people think, oh, we'll just do that. I would support a jobs guarantee and a living wage over a UBI, just if I had to pick. But so to me, UBI is something I support in theory, but it has to work in conjunction with.
Right answer. Yes.
That's the way it works.
So, as far as right now, a lot of people are saying UBI at least for the next few months, and even retroactive for the next back 2 months. How is your state, your district, handling being out of work and unemployment and things like that?
From my understanding, it's a disaster. It's just absolutely atrocious. I'm personally not dealing with the system because I'm not filing for unemployment. I'm very fortunate, but I have not. I don't think I've heard of anybody with a successful who has received and gone through the process and had it work out how it needed to work out for them. I don't think I know a single person. And Florida, I think, we're in like the bottom in terms of how we handle unemployment, what benefits we give for unemployment. But I did read a post recently by a fellow progressive type person in my area who is a gig musician and applied. And there's that whole industry that was supposed to be included in this, and yet they're not being included in this. So there's no shortage of problems. And as it is, we are huge with income inequality and have a very sad lack of affordable housing. So all of the things that are bad are going to be exponentially bad in all of the places that have the wider income inequality and the less affordable housing. So it's inevitably going to be worse here.
Wow. So you do have a huge homelessness problem.
Yeah. We used to, growing up down here, it was one of the things that my mom always would talk about because she always would have us being volunteering and donating and doing stuff for the homeless. But they used to do what they called Greyhound therapy. And Greyhound therapy back in the day would be basically local municipalities and local law enforcement would get one-way bus tickets for the homeless people before the winter and send them all down here. So in the winter months, we would see these huge spikes in shanty towns built under highways and all sorts of stuff like that. And so then what they started doing is building fences around the underpasses so nobody can build little encampments in the safer place to be. So it's the same thing as the homeless spikes on benches or, it's,
I was going to say, that's what it sounds like.
It's that same, just completely amoral, I can't even get into that mindset. It's so strange to me.
Wow. That's so gross. Do you support a homes guarantee?
Absolutely. Everybody, to me, and that's one of the things I love about Brand New Congress, is the 21st Century Bill of Rights and this idea that everybody, the addition of things that we should be entitled to as a civilization that has the resources for which to give us those things. So we should all be having food and shelter and education. And, there are things that we should have as a society that are available. I mean, I always say if we didn't have the resources, that would be one thing. Right? If we didn't have healthcare resources to provide everybody with healthcare, it's like seating people in a restaurant at a table when there's no waitress, right? So you can't, but we have unlimited amounts of resources for so many of these things. So it's not a supply demand problem. But yeah, I absolutely support a homes guarantee. It's same thing. Look at all these buildings that are empty and people living in the streets. That is, to me, the epitome of end stage capitalism. It's this malfunctioning where you have empty buildings and homeless people at the same time. That to me just proves some of the serious shortcomings of unfettered capitalism.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure I already know the answer to this, but do you think Debbie Wasserman Schultz will debate you?
No, she wouldn't. And, I've thought about it in the past, and I really have nothing I'd want to even debate with her about, quite honestly. To me, a debate is when you have two people with solid positions that know what they're talking about, that are pretty both intellectual, fact-based opinions, and you kind of go back and forth and either come to some sort of understanding where people learn things, people, they get enlightened by things. Her and me doing a back and forth would be nothing like that. It would be basically her sitting there and saying platitudes and me just talk. It would be, I don't know. It would serve no point. And I think it's more one of those things that people want to see, almost like female mud wrestling, almost like a desire for carnage. I think that's more what people are interested in, but there would be no there. What is she going to say? Look, if she wanted to debate me and she threw that out there, I would debate her. But I don't care enough to debate her or hear what she has to say to keep baiting her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would pay-per-view that shit. I'm not gonna lie, but
and I think that and if I were you and I was watching someone like me, I'd feel like that too. I volunteered for Tim in 2016, and I would have loved to have watched an actual debate, but it was never going to happen as an actual debate. And the best that he ended up getting was a 15-minute sit down on the Jim DeFeedy show, where they had pre-planned questions and pre-planned answers. And, you know, for something like that, no. And the only reason that even happened, I think, is because they basically cornered her after so many months of saying she's avoiding it, she's avoiding it. My strategy is let her avoid it. I don't need to talk to her. She's not bringing anything to the party. And every time she goes in front of the camera for something else, I get a windfall of donations. So I just, you know, I have nothing to say to her.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, she can't just fall back on Hillary now. Because Hillary's kind of thankfully been more out of the spotlight, thankfully. So she doesn't really have that crutch. But yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much couldn't be more different candidate wise. One of the biggest differences is, of course, that you are not just, you know, platitude wise grassroots. You are grassroots. You take no big money. You take it's people powered. So why did you decide to run your campaign like that, and why is that important to you?
So the only reason I would ever do this would be with the mission, really, of getting money out of politics. And I know people say that and it sounds really good in theory, and that's one of the reasons why I never ran earlier, because it just never seemed feasible to me to actually be able to do this and be honest and not take corporate money and not be a sellout to either special interest corporations or, quite honestly, the party. It never occurred to me that you could do this that way. And then in 2018, we made a little bit of progress with getting in some non-corporatists, and I saw that it was maybe possible. And then, quite honestly, I was asked to do this. And I think that a lot of that had to do with my demographic in reaching voters in this area. And it just, the timing seemed right. And really, everything that I stand for, I've stood for forever. There's nothing new. I mean, I joined the Democratic Party. It had to be 1988. And my mom was a Democrat and my dad was a Democrat, and I joined that party, and I haven't changed. I'm still pro-labor, pro-environment, and anti-war. So I'm not that far left. I haven't changed. They've gone way to the right and have been purchased. And you know, when people talk about us as the left and bringing it back to the left, that's really what it is. They've strayed. They are the ones that have strayed back and created a situation where we have no Labor Party anymore in this country. And that's ultimately going to be the death of their capitalism, because they're going to end up with no consumers.
Absolutely. And wait till they see those Dem exit numbers after
I'm
scared
of people doing it before down ballot closed primaries. That's the only thing. And you know, I think as someone in a closed primary, people do not Dem exit until after you vote in down ballots. There's still a few of us that need help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in a closed state too. It sucks. I'm like, you guys, I know I feel dirty too. I'm going to permanently move in the shower, but we have to do it.
Yeah.
It's just so, especially now that we don't have Bernie, we need people like you even more, because you guys are going to be our voice.
I hope so. I mean, that's what, you know, that's the whole goal of this, is to get it so that regular people can do a term of service and represent their communities. That's the point. It's a term of service, not a career. And I feel like I should make a news flash of that to all of these people, that these Congress people, and people put them on pedestals and look up to them. And on a daily basis, I'm just disgusted with how they talk so condescendingly. And are you kidding me? Those are our employees. Those are our insubordinate employees. And when I look at somebody, and I don't care if it's somebody, whether it's the Speaker of the House or it's someone who's been there for 5 years or someone who's been there 50 years, you don't talk to people in the way that they talk to people, as if somehow you're a leader. You're not a leader. You're a representative. It's not called the House of Leaders. It's called the House of Representatives. And I think that we need to take that power back, just even in our own minds, as to what they're really supposed to be doing. You know, how dare they have healthcare, but we can't have healthcare? Are you kidding me? This is the kind of stuff that, honestly, if I weren't running, I'd probably be wearing a yellow vest in the street, because this should be keeping people up at night. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is, I mean, it does actually keep me up at night. So
yeah, same. Yeah, I mean, right on. This is we're in unprecedented times. If you're not pissed off now, I don't know when the hell you will be, because this is, in most of our lifetimes, this is like the epitome of darkness.
It is.
It's bad. One of the things, of course, always on people's minds is Medicare for all. A lot of us are feeling very defeatist with Bernie dropping. So when people talk to you about Medicare for all and how you support it, what is something you say to them about the importance of it and that it's still attainable?
I've gotten more and more increasingly completely unwavering. Like, this isn't even something that this is something I'm not even willing to debate and negotiate anymore. It's just not. This is ridiculous already. We need single payer healthcare. We need to get the profit motive out. Now, we can discuss and negotiate and compromise a myriad of different types of systems that would work best for us to do in this country for our population, considering where we are right now. But for us to not do some form of a not-for-profit single-payer healthcare system is completely unacceptable at this point. 72%, and I think that's even undercounting, percent of the American people want this. So we want this. That's their job to give us this. It isn't even this is not worth a debate. Majority rules. This is a Democratic Republican theory. So if most people want this, why don't we have this? We know why we don't have this. So when you talk to most people, they're supportive of it, because most people, when they're given the information properly and not in a fear tactic, scary way, like, do you want to give up your insurance or whatever, gaslighting kind of stuff. When people are explained this, most people, and I mean most people, support Medicare for all. And the few exceptions that I meet in my district are generally older people that have been on Medicare. And there is sometimes this mentality of, well, I waited to get it and you can wait to get it. And I don't agree with that sentiment, but I'm just saying there is that element to my populace here.
Absolutely. I found that too. As far as, Medicare for all goes, if we lived in an actual democracy, we could put that on ballots and say, do you support this? Screw like 100-person, polls. The majority of America absolutely wants it. But unfortunately, we don't really have democracy right now. So along with that, I saw you actually posted about opioid addiction today as well. Is that something that is very prevalent in your district?
I think it's prevalent everywhere. And especially, you have everything from very wealthy communities having people completely just, zonked out on prescription painkillers versus people in the streets that are substituting with, meth and, whatever else they're doing to keep that same rush going. And a lot of it starts out fairly legitimately. We know what's happened down here with pill mills. That was something that was very big in Florida, where we had lots of little pill mill factories where doctors were prescribing it and getting kickbacks from the painkiller pharmaceutical industry. And, we do have a certain amount of that down here. But more than anything, for me, it's just the complete disproportionate treatment of things like marijuana versus opioids, and the way that I feel like the pharmaceutical industry, while totally neglecting an opioid crisis because that's in their best interest, and then yet on the other hand, they're keeping down legalization of marijuana, which would be a huge help to the opioid crisis. And we all know this. So they go hand in hand to me. The opioid crisis is one health crisis, and then the criminal justice aspect is how we've disproportionately penalized people that have used cannabis. So it's both those things work together for me.
Yeah, and on the note of cannabis, you are passionate about criminal justice. You are a lawyer. And let me look at the exact terminology. You are a co-chair of Juvenile Justice Committee. What is that?
That's my local League of Women Voters chapter. My co-chair and I, we keep track of the state legislation in the arena of juvenile justice. I attend the monthly meetings on behalf of our chapter for our statewide for the League of Women Voters. And really, it's just they needed somebody to head that committee, and I had a criminal justice background. So they asked me. I really didn't have that much of a background in juvenile justice, but I've learned so much from doing that, and I've really appreciated it a lot. It almost brought everything full circle to me, because you see how the system, how it starts, where it starts. It starts really young. It starts, they say school to prison pipeline for a reason. So I feel like it's really broadened my base of what I know about criminal justice to add juveniles. I never felt comfortable really representing juveniles really out of law school. I felt like I needed more experience, but this is a perfect, I've learned so much about the legislation, and Florida, of course, is the worst. We have the most direct files, which means children tried as adults. And we have the most direct files out of any state in the country. And we actually can try children as young as 14 as adults and house them in adult facilities while they're waiting for their trials. We can do that, and it's at the sole discretion of the prosecutor with no judicial oversight whatsoever.
Wow, that is scary. As far as voting goes, and people with criminal backgrounds, even if they were arrested for misdemeanor or what have you, I know in 2018, Florida had issues with people who were incarcerated getting out and trying to vote, and they needed to pay fines, things like that. Is Florida going to be more open with them this time?
No, I mean, well, what happened in 18 was we passed a constitutional amendment. It was Amendment 4 here in Florida, where the voters of this state, I believe it was 65% of the voters of this state, voted to allow returning citizens, convicted felons, once they are done serving their sentence, to get their rights to vote back. Florida is one of a handful of archaic states that had what we call a permanent ban. So once somebody's been convicted of a felony, they were never allowed to get their voting rights back in the state of Florida. So truthfully, what Amendment 4 did was it got rid of the lifetime ban. And that was the key thing that the people that were pushing Amendment 4 were really trying to do. And then, yes, our legislature then, of course, had to make it more difficult and say, well, now they have to pay all their court cost fees and fines. The problem with that is when you go to serve your sentence, those costs are converted to what is called civil debt, right? So everybody has a certain amount of civil debt. You have a mortgage, you have student loan payments, whatever you have, we have civil debt. It doesn't preclude us from voting. And so that's really the key issue right now, is that we have a situation where returning citizens, that we're allowing their civil debt to preclude them from getting their right to vote back. So to someone like me, it's just an outrage. But then again, I don't think that voting and crime have any interconnectedness whatsoever, and your right to vote is supreme, regardless of whether you're incarcerated or not. I don't see those as related. So, but now it's just taken on a whole new level. Now there are organizations that have been doing a lot of fundraising and GoFundMes and helping people raise the money to pay their fees. And there have been a lot of lawyers doing pro bono work to get people's fees paid, and where you can substitute some fees for community service. And there's different things that you have to do. You have to get basically the victim of the crime has to basically agree. So there's steps that you have to go through to do it. But I think that we will see a lot more people voting. I think it's infinitely better than having a lifetime ban. So it's a step in the right direction.
That's so crazy. That's so undemocratic. Wow.
Yeah, I hate sometimes I feel like I'm the bearer of the worst news. And I'm always like, don't shoot the messenger, like it's not a good situation. Florida is very draconian.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I digress a little. Oh, well, first, before I go there, you do want to end for-profit prisons. You said that is a big one in Florida.
It is actually another thing. Florida has the most for-profit prisons. We have the most for-profit prisons, and we have the most juvenile direct files. It's as somebody who cares a lot about criminal justice, it's like a double whammy. But yeah, we have the most for-profit prisons in this state. And they're not just prisons. I mean, they're also immigration detention centers. Same difference.
Wow. So that kind of makes you wonder, wow, why do they want all these people in jail?
Why did they separate children and put them in 3,000 of them in Homestead? They were making $750 a night per head, was what the private contractors were making. And that doesn't even include all the other services like the transportation services, electrical services, internet providers, like all the people that provide all the services. All of that's private contracting. All of that is somebody making a profit off of people being incarcerated.
Oh my God, it's disgusting. As far as, sorry, I'm just scanning the comments. It looks like Paul said we need to abolish charter schools. What's your stance on that?
Okay, so, you know, charter schools is one of those things that it depends on the charter school. It really does. And the reason I say that is not all charter schools are the same. And I feel the same way about this as I do about just in general public education, is it is another realm that should not be for profit. So charter schools that are run by for-profit industries, I don't support that at all. Now you're siphoning money out of the public system to give to some sort of interest in shareholders, essentially middleman people, and I don't agree with that. However, here in my district, one of our charter school systems is Pembroke Pines Charter School, and it is run and managed by the city of Pembroke Pines, and it is an exceptionally good charter school system. It is an exceptionally good program. The teachers are very well provided for. My cousin has been there for years, and I have heard numerous things about this particular charter school, and I think that the key difference is there's no profit motive. So it's essentially it is run like a public school, with the exception of they have better curriculum choices. They get all the benefits of what we do like about the idea of a charter school, that they can specialize in certain things. So I just want to distinguish that not all charters are the same. I think we have to distinguish the for-profit system in that determination.
Interesting. I must admit, I did not know there was a difference.
Every charter is different. Every charter company, it's all, and that's what makes it such kind of a sketchy situation for people, because you don't really know what you're going to get if you don't really dig and look into the company and who's paying for it and and most parents don't. They just think, oh, nice shiny new school, I'll put my kid there, and then the money gets funneled out from the public school and hurts everybody else in the community. And so that I am not a supporter of, but there are ways that charter schools can benefit an entire community. And I've seen that. So I think we have to not throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
Okay. As far as I know, Florida as a whole has a lot of immigrants. What is your district like as far as that? Are people worried still? Are they being taken care of?
We have obviously a very large immigrant population here. And I personally have a friend that was deported almost 2 years ago to Venezuela. And so I've seen what the system looks like and how it rounds people up and how ICE operates and things. I've seen that very personally. So, we do have that, and there are a lot of detention centers here for immigrants, and it's a huge problem. And I've always supported comprehensive immigration reform. And you say, well, what does that mean? What is comprehensive immigration reform? And I think the first key thing is we have to get to this concept as a people, how we believe it's okay to treat people. What do we think is okay? What is treating people with dignity? We have to come to an agreement on what that means. And to me, obviously what it means to me is different than obviously the people in power right now. And I also think that immigration should be something very similar to what Julian Castro actually made a really good point about this when he was in the beginning of the primary phase, where he talked about the immigration laws, when they're broken, being treated as civil citations more so than criminal offenses. And the difference between that is there's no need to incarcerate and separate families. There's a whole host of things we can do that protect our borders but treat people with dignity. And I do not see how those things are mutually exclusive whatsoever. I do think we need borders. I think we need to protect our borders. I think if people are in this country and they are not here legally and they get caught doing something violent, then that is something that I'm willing to say, okay, I could see those people being deported. But the act of coming here illegally, to me, is not something that should be treated as a criminal offense, even in a scenario where somebody ends up having to be returned to where they come from because they didn't do what they needed to do. There's still a way to do it where we treat people with dignity. There just is.
Absolutely, especially when our country's responsible for so much of why they're coming here.
Well, certainly in Latin America. I mean, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. if somebody is leaving, and I always thought that even as a kid, when we would literally be watching the news down here and you would see a boat of people pulling up into the beach and a raid of police officers swarming the beach and all the people jumping out of the boats and swimming and trying to run past the police officers like a game of Red Rover, right? Like this, we would see this as kids. And they always treated the Cubans different than they would treat the Haitians. Right? It all depends on where you're from, how you get treated, and what kind of political posturing we're doing with your particular country and all this stuff. And that never sat right with me even then. I think that this should be same rule. Everybody has the same rule. Everyone has to follow the same procedure. And that should be, no matter where you're from, there should be two types of immigrants: people seeking and need immediate asylum for whatever reason they have, and then people that just want to move here. And within those categories, it shouldn't matter which country you're from. That's always bothered me.
Absolutely. Is there any other topic you'd like to touch on?
I don't know. What haven't we talked about? We talked about environment. We talked about Medicare for all. We talked about criminal justice reform. I mean, those are my top three. And, you know, I'm trying to think. I mean, a lot of people lately have been talking about Native peoples and, the issue with COVID. I know that Navajo Nation is having a huge thing. I just did something with my BNC slate mate. And it's very interesting because we have Seminoles here and we don't have that. It's very, very different type of tribal environment. And so it's just very interesting how each one of our districts has such different needs as far as dealing with not just COVID, I mean, but with everything. And the common baseline is that we just need to be treating people a whole hell of a lot better than we're treating them. You know, and always people that are the vulnerable people, whether it's your indigenous peoples or your Black people or your Latino people, you know, it's just, everything is just that much harder for people that are already disenfranchised, you know, and we just need to keep reminding people that we got to punch up. And it's not, you know, they want to keep us fighting amongst ourselves. They want to keep us punching down. They want to blame the other. And it's just not the way to go. It is just not, it's not going to serve us at all. And the people that are the responsible people for everything that's going on are the people at the top, not the people at the bottom. So I guess that's my key message.
And you are endorsed by Brand New Congress. And I'm only touching on this because it came out today. But what are your thoughts about Justice Dems becoming a PAC today?
You know, I had decided a long time ago, what was a campaign decision. We didn't seek out to affiliate with Justice Dems when we first started this. They approached me a couple of times and I just didn't, but more for reasons of just the demographics of my district. It would not be prudent for me to be affiliated with people like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, based on some of the anti-Semite allegations, which I'm not saying I believe, but just it wouldn't be prudent for me to do that. So we didn't affiliate with them. And after this stuff just came out about them, I'm feeling very, very happy that I didn't, because that is not okay with me. It's just not okay with me. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. I'm glad that I'm not affiliated. And yeah, I'm happy being a BNC Bernie-crat. That's plenty good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jesus wants to know your thoughts on net neutrality.
Oh, completely 100% support net neutrality. It needs to be a utility and everybody should have the same access to the internet like it's water. That is something that should not be we're being gouged, essentially. It's price gouging and keeping people disenfranchised from a system that we clearly need to move in that direction. It is no longer an option for people to have access to that. That's not something that should just be for the rich and the famous. So yeah, I'm 100% net neutrality.
Awesome. What is something you'd like to leave our viewers with to take away from this, and maybe, you know, go to your website for donations or share the show, anything like that?
Well, you know, as a grassroots campaign and as a very service-oriented campaign, it is not always my first priority to ask for money. In fact, I generally hate it. But we do need money. We need donations. And so, you know, if people want to help us out, we do a lot of small dollar donations. And we are at gen2020.com. People can follow me on Twitter at GenFL23. I am at Jen Perelman for Congress 2020 or is it Jen for Congress 2020 on Instagram? And I'm sorry because they changed it and it messed me up. But yeah, we need volunteers. We need people phone banking. We need volunteers that can help do other administrative type things that people can do from their homes. And we just need all the support, people liking the page, people forwarding and retweeting and all of that stuff. All of that helps us. But yeah, we need that.
I just want to clarify too, someone named Michelita, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, as Jen herself is Jewish. She is not anti-Jewish. She was making a statement about Ilhan being called anti-Jewish.
Correct. Yes. I am a Jewish person, very proud to be a Jewish person, born and raised Jewish. I do not, nor have I ever found Ilhan Omar personally to be anti-Semitic, or Rashida Tlaib, or anybody that is generally called anti-Semitic for speaking out against certain things about the state of Israel. However, there are many people in my district, older, more conservative people, that are people that would be supportive of me, but they would not be if they thought I was affiliating with people that they find to be anti-Semitic, even though I do not agree with them. Does that explain it? That's just the reality.
I understood. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that before we got off the air, because I'm like, I would not have an anti-Semite on my show. I promise, like, ever. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. I always like having you here. What is your website, your Twitter, all that fun stuff?
So we are Jen2020.com. We are Twitter, JenFL23. We are Jen2020 on Facebook. And I want to say Jen for Congress 2020 on Instagram. And we're doing lives once a week. We're doing lives on Mondays. We are now going to be doing virtual meet and greets, so people can have me come right into their very own living room and request a virtual Zoom meeting and invite your friends. And we're also locally doing something called COVID caravans, where people can request us to come do a caravan through your neighborhood and drop off things like hand sanitizers and masks and stuff. So we're just trying to make the most of a completely online existence now that we can't canvass, and that we're just coming up with as many creative ideas as we can to reach people.
That is awesome. Well, thank you again for coming back. And thank you guys for watching. Tomorrow is a day I've been waiting for a while. I've been working on a project with someone we all love very much, and I am going to be announcing it tomorrow on the Humanist Report. Cool. So I'm kind of freaking out. Mike said that it won't air tomorrow night, though. It'll be a day or two till he gets it ready to put up. But I'm like, as online as I am, I'm about to burst keeping this in for the past few weeks. So
now I really want to know.
It's a really big deal. So
I'm really excited.
It's keeping me going. So it's something we're very excited about. So that is something to look forward to. Also, I have some other great shows coming up. I have Shahid Buttar coming back on the 19th. I have Luke Savage coming back from Jacobin. So I have a lot of great shows for the next several weeks booked. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. And thank you again, Jen, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take care.